We have to not just like 5 seconds reaching. Where were you? Why were you not that will be building a reaction I think that is for everyone, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to Introduction to Armor Making. A lot of these suits here, actually these are these guys' like first suits, first things they built, so you'd be surprised what you can make. So hopefully you guys can build stuff like this our next anime, but we started. So we'll start with introduction. My name is Danielle. I've been building armor since 2009. ODST and Halo is a big thing for me, and worked on a couple of film stuff, and I like to be able to do more role-playing armor and breaking a lot.
I'm Eric. My name is Eric Newgard from Impact Props, and I've been doing this stuff for about 5 years. Mostly focused on like Halo and Skyrim and Iron Man stuff. Yeah, all the stuff I learned was from forums online and just from messing around in the garage back home.
I'm Xander from Teamprops.net. I've been doing this as a hobby for about 6 years or so, and then I started doing it professionally for about year 3. So I do props for a living, actually.
You're the only professional. All the rest of us do it as hobbyists.
Professional.
Alright, so here's what we're going to be covering. In this panel, it's going to be a really sort of brief overview primer just to get you guys some basic ideas, and then so you guys are on the right track to get more in-depth information. We're going to go over sort of designing and planning out how you're going to tackle your armor. We're going to go over Tapestira, which is basically a 3D modeling origami, almost sort of papercraft method, which is great for like when you get around sculpting. Plus, we're going to talk about thermoplastics, such as Warbler or styrene, like this armor is built out of. And then we're going to talk about foam. So you see they all can produce very high quality armor. So at the top, those suits, the suits themselves are all foam, all EVA foam floor mats, and then the helmets are, you just purchase the helmet as CAT or Tapestira. The ODST armor in the bottom left corner is all Tapestira, and then the bottom right is styrene. So these are all very great beginner sort of methods to make armor. But before you start building armor, you've got to design it. And when you decide what you want to build, one of the biggest things is looking at your source material and realizing that most video games, most anime are not designed with human proportions in mind. So if you want to build this Gundam armor like Xander is doing, you've got to make a lot of things into consideration. Then you want to talk about how to design that?
Okay. Yeah, I can do Gundam as an example here. I did this last year. Sorry, you guys. So Gundam is a good example because you have a design for humans. You might look at that and say, I could do that. And, minus all the hours in concept, it looks easy. Well, Gundams have way wider shoulders. They have tiny torsos. Their legs are like 40% longer. And you have to take these things into, consideration. So, yeah, that's true. Yeah, you don't want to make the hip armor too wide. I mean, like every little detail is pretty important. So compromising is a big part. So you look at something that doesn't blow your mind completely. There's a certain extent to where you can get something with it. Actually, Eric's armor is a really good example. I mean, Eric's a pretty big guy, bro, but it's like his biceps hang like 3 inches out from his arm, which is great because then he looks like a Spartan. So he can bench.
He is far less intimidating than he is college clothes.
Yeah, he's almost as skinny as me, and I'm 140 pounds. He's a lot taller.
Almost.
So you want to use that stuff to your advantage big time. Even if like a foam muscle suit is like pretty much the most basic example I can get. And when you're building armor and stuff, don't just measure how wide your shoulders are and make your shoulders walk that wide. If your source material is a Gundam or something.
So one of my biggest things is when you build stuff like the Spartan armor, and you'll notice that in video games, a lot of the armor just clips through and magically transforms. Like, so there's this big armor piece on their arm. Then when they move their hand over here, it just goes through their chest piece conveniently. And that doesn't happen in real life. So instead, you're like, oh, I need to pick my phone up or something. Just like, oh, I can't move. So the good idea for that is what I do for that is I study actual body armor. I look at body armor like medieval body armor. I look at modern military body armor. And just kind of look at the areas where they have to cut away from mobility and sort of cheat those areas. You'll see like the suits here, like you can get a lot of mobility if you just kind of know where to cut through. Like you'll see down in the gap of the thigh or the groin area, you got to cut away that area. Whereas in the game, it goes all the way up top. But in reality, if you do that, you can't really sit down. You'll see like on Eric's armor, he cheats a lot, like just so that you can sit down properly and. It helps that it's also foam, so you put flexible things there.
I can't sit down.
So think about, just look at where you have to flex in order to sit down properly. Because if you're going to walk around in a con, you want to be able to last a little while for it.
And another nice thing to take into account when you're designing your armor is the materials at your disposal, which is why we're going over several different methods of building. Because say you're building I'll just do a Spartan suit because that's what I did, and you want to be able to sit down and stuff. I've used, say, like EVA foam, which we'll go over. It's a flexible material as opposed to like styrene, which is more rigid, which you might want to use for like the forearms or hand plates or boots or something. And using thermoplastics they're usually more rigid and much harder. So use that to your advantage when you're designing your armor. You don't have to just use one material. Think outside the box and use whatever's at your disposal, because there's really no like manual or guidebook to build your own armor, because it's custom fit to use. Well.
Okay. So just thinking about building and planning it out, Tepakura is a big one. Like a Tepakura is basically a way of making rigid armor pieces with a 3D model. And I actually have the program, I believe, that I can show you guys here. So what Tepakura is you get 3D models and you can make papercraft forms for them. Show you guys this.
It's a free program, by the way.
Yeah, so you can go online, Google Tepakura Designer to do this, and you basically, it's a way of you can take a 3D model, and then it'll give you a grid, it'll convert it to make papercraft. So you see all these things that you print out. So actually print these out onto a card, you print it onto a heavy-duty cardstock that's slightly more rigid, and you'll glue it together like a papercraft or origami, and then at the end you'll assemble into, like here you see how it's actually paper all glued together. You can see the grid lines from the model, the 3D model, so you bring the 3D model into reality there. The end product, you get a nice, basically 3D model like this, so it's hard and rigid. So it's good for like helmets, body armor that is going to be plated like I use it for my ODST armor because it's going to be right here in front where I know it's not going to have to flex. when people use it for like their thighs or their waist area is when you start seeing issues because it's built in a hard object and then you can't sit down.
It's good for high detail parts.
Yeah. So first thing is you need to get 3D models and sourcing, and there's a lot of different sources for Halo, Forexit.com is a big one. There's a replica prop forum, and Eric Newgart's site, ImpactCustoms.com, has a lot of files and tutorials on how to get started. Right. It's a pretty intuitive program though. So these pictures are actually the first helmet that I built, which is the one that you saw in the earlier picture in the intro one. It's the same helmet. So basically steps are you get the file, you're going to print it out on your cardstock, glue it together, make the paper craft, storage. So you got to glue and fold and put them all together, and then you get that box. And then you have to make this paper craft rigid so that you can make it strong. There's two part ways to do this. The way they were doing it a couple years ago was through polyester resin and fiberglass, which is very lightweight and strong. It's also very messy and toxic. So it's not apartment friendly. It'll kill you. Yeah, it will kill you. So buy vapor respirator if you want to do it. But it's basically like laying fiberglass for a car or building a surfboard or boat repair. And if you just do like brush resin on it and then slowly strengthen it a little bit each time, a little bit more each time until it's really hard and strong. And actually, that original helmet started off as a piece of paper, and now if you go up and you knock on it, it's really nice and rigid. The more common way nowadays is people actually buy two-part resin, which you can buy from plastics local to the area, or you can order online from companies like Smooth-On, and you buy two-part urethane resin, and it's a lot safer, it's a lot more indoor friendly as long as you lay a tarp down so you can get your deposit back.
It's a lot faster too.
Yeah, and then you just sort of get that paper model, making sure it keeps staying, just kind of flush this resin inside. Some people have like melted hot glue sticks, which seems acceptable. I've seen a couple of them, I don't like it, but the concept's all the same. You're basically trying to ways to make it hard and stiff. It's just like, you can imagine some people also just glue cardboard together and strengthen it. Sorry, you have something wrong? Alright. And then once you get it hard and stiff enough, is when you apply something like auto body filler, Bondo. What I did? Yeah. Okay. So you want to get it hard enough that you can start making stuff like auto body filler, and basically you're just sanding it smooth and sanding the details in. So that's it's just like turning paper, strengthening it, and then putting filler on it. Like some people, like you see how some people with props will put like gesso or wood filler. I recommend Bondo just because it tends to get a much smoother finish. Gesso is not designed to get a super smooth finish. It's a primer for art canvases, and then wood filler is built for wood, and this isn't wood. So, Bondo, like you see a car, you can get a really smooth finish with it. So you can get that smooth finish because you're basically using auto body filler on this. So you can get look how smooth that thing is if you get a chance to look it up close.
And you can buy any of those things. You can buy fiberglass resin and Bondo at any hardware store. It's usually in the automobile or auto department aisle.
And it's not terribly expensive. Like you can get a big gallon of Bondo for like $25 and then just mix it up. You get a big gallon of this stuff, scoop it out with like a big wooden stick, mix some red tape in it, and then just spread it, and then sandpaper it to the shape that you want. And then you can get turn that weird blocky polygonal video game shape into that one in the bottom left. It's really smooth. It looks like a round spherical shape. And then start off with that big blocky one. That's one really beginner friendly. If you have like a really complex shape, like you don't know how to make that Hayabusa helmet from scratch, like I said, you can find people that have put out the files for it, and you can just step by step. The steps are all the same. It's all you can find in the file. And then we'll let you go.
All right. Thermoplastic. So this is probably one of the more difficult ways to go. It's probably the most rare. You'll see stuff outside of Star Wars armor. The reason being is when you make a costume out of thermoplastic, most costumes are vacuum formed. Excuse me. And that requires you to make the part out of some loose material, like MDF or something. Then you make a plaster mold of the negative, and then you make a positive mold out of that negative, and then you put it in a vacuum former, and then you make the part. Yeah, that sounds ridiculous, right? I mean, you can do bucks, it's called a buck, the part that you're vacuum forming, out of other materials that are rigid enough and smooth enough, which can work sometimes. But it is a lot of work, and for those of you who don't know, vacuum forming is you take a sheet of styrene. What is styrene? Styrene is this stuff, yay! If you've ever bought a for sale sign, here's a little corner of it I have left from Home Depot or something. That's a good little sample. It's this thin plastic that when it gets hot, it gets wavy. It doesn't heat very often, or heat very even. So when you're doing vacuum forming, you usually have a big machine that you build, or if you're lucky, you have access to one, and it heats up the plastic evenly. Then you force it down on an object, and then it sucks the air out from between the plastic and the object. So it's almost like a really ghetto mold making system, if you want to call it that. So these are obviously vacuum formed. I mean, there's no way you're going to get a flat piece of plastic to look like this just out of styrene with traditional tools, which is basically an X-Acto, a pair of scissors, and super glue. That's what you're using to work styrene, if you're just using styrene sheets. So you can form styrene using heat with a vac former, or you can use sheet material to build stuff. It's not great for curves, but sometimes you can get away. Like this was just a bunch of sheet styrene laminated together, and then it's a bellow. It's really rigid, and it takes rivets, and I've got some MDF reinforcing it, but that'll never be a problem. The boxes are also styrene, so it's good for certain things. And I found, those are vacuum formed. You can see this was a sheet, and they trimmed the outline very loosely. And you can see also with vacuum forming, if you're using a fair thickness, you're going to have a little filler on the edges. Vacuum forming doesn't take sharp details, but it does give you something that's nice and smooth, provided that the buck was smooth. Something that looks probably the most professional. Although you do want to mix and match your materials for different jobs. It's probably the best way to go. The other materials that are out there, you have Sintra, which is expanded PVC sheet. It cuts like a thin piece of wood, which is nice, but it's a little bit porous, so you have to seal it, much like EVA. We'll talk about that. But the nice thing about that is, unlike just styrene, you can't really just heat it with a heat gun and then bend it into what you want, because you need a machine that'll heat it perfectly even and constrain it to what you want it to do. Whereas PVC sheet will be a thicker material. It'll absorb the heat better. It'll spread out. You could cut something out, like you could cut out a beveled rectangle, and then you heated it up and then formed it. It would take that curve pretty well if you bent it around a pipe or something, and you would get a cool rounded shape with bevel, which is pretty crazy to make out of just sheet material or something as it is. There's also Worbla and some other materials, and they have like a cloth backing, and they're extremely expensive compared to styrene, even PVC sheets, for sure. But you can make some amazing stuff. The thing about that stuff, like Worbla, is you can go, if you're really good at it, you can get straight to like, medieval-looking organic, more armor stuff. So it takes some finishing work, but that's probably the way to go if you don't want to try out other materials. So they're nice. They are rigid. They do make noises and crackling. So keep that in mind. Yeah, well, they do flex. You don't want it to flex in the direction of the edges. You don't want it to crack on a seam. But as far as like flexing, it's really good for certain stuff. So I'd advise just going to Home Depot, getting a sample, a for sale sign, handicap parking sign, whatever, and just cutting it out with a piece of scissors. Pair of scissors, use a sheet. This is about the thickness of a credit card, and that's, in my opinion, the best way to go to learn. And start cutting it out, use some super glue, and make a little broth or an accessory or something if you like it.
You want to make like simple bracers or very simple armor shapes. It's really nice and easy. Like some people will go and spend a lot of money on Worbla, back with craft foam and stuff. And really, you could just do it with styrene and save yourself $50, $60. It should be all the expense.
Yeah, and you can layer them up and you can get it thicker too. So if the store doesn't have quarter-inch styrene, you really want a quarter-inch bracket thick, and you can just layer it up and Dremel it or do whatever. Sand's easy. It doesn't need sealing. It just sinks the paint.
You get a nice smooth finish off the bat. With Worbla, Worbla is basically it's just like a bunch of plastic dust glued together is what Worbla is. And you have a really nasty texture with Warbler that you have to spend forever smoothing and finishing. Like that Claymore armor in the corner I did the shoulders out of styrene, and the rest I did out of Warbler. Sort of like a last ditch thing because I ran out of materials the night before I had to mail it out. So all I had was Warbler, and the Warbler took forever with filler. It's fun. You can see the shoulders are nice and smooth already, like off of that with the styrene. So something to play around with. It's not often used.
If you want to get large sheets of styrene or Sintra, Tap Plastics is probably the best way to get it. They've got several different thicknesses for whatever job you need. It's also a good idea to layer up if you want to get more styrene or Sintra.
Tap Plastics also has a scrap bin. So rate that if you want to play around with it. You get a big sheet for $100. And then the most popular one lately, I just bought on a couple of foam.
Yeah, so foam hasn't been around for very long. I think one of the first popular foam suits that was made was like 2.5 years ago. So it's kind of a recent thing, but I don't know why somebody had the idea. I probably just like at a play structure or something and looked on the ground and saw the foam that you would usually lay on the floor and said, hey, maybe I'll make some armor out of this. I don't know what they were thinking, but it works really well. So EVA foam is, you use it all the time. It's just craft foam, basically. This is a thin sheet of EVA foam, purchased from like Michael's or any craft store. You've probably seen it before. The EVA foam mats that look like giant puzzle pieces that you put on the ground in kindergarten, those were also EVA foam. Yoga mats are also made of EVA foam. So you've probably seen or touched EVA foam before. But the great thing about EVA foam is that it's flexible and it's also heat sensitive. So it also breathes really nicely, which is why yoga mats are made out of it. But this entire suit, minus the helmet, was made out of EVA foam, and all you need is, well, the foam, an X-Acto knife, a heat gun, and something to seal it and paint it, and a hot glue gun. That's really all you need. Because EVA foam will bend really nicely if you heat it up with a heat gun. Hot glue will bond it almost permanently, and it's available at all sorts of stores, hardware stores, Michael's, sporting goods stores will almost always carry EVA foam. So usually what you'll get is a big puzzle piece, like a giant sheet of EVA foam. And the trick to working with EVA foam is working in layers and using a heat gun to your advantage. Because you'll create templates. Most costuming websites or forums will have templates available that you can print out on the Pepakura program and just trace onto your phone and cut out with an X-Acto knife and then glue together. Sometimes it's better to build from scratch without printing out templates and designing your own templates. What you want to do is, when you look at your armor, work in layers. For example, the shoulder piece for the Hayabusa armor is only like 7 pieces of foam, but by layering up, you can make it look like it's a lot larger and a lot more complex. So when you create your template, you cut it out with an X-Acto knife from the foam. And a very important thing that a lot of people don't take into account when creating with EVA foam is to continuously switch out your X-Acto blades. Because after a while, when you use your X-Acto knife, it'll start to tear at the edges of the foam, and you'll get like it'll look like torn paper. And when you finish your armor, you'll still be able to notice the torn paper. And some people will look at their finished piece and say, hey, what happened? I worked really hard and it still looks like really like rough around the edges. The trick is to continuously switch out your blades. So I'd say for one sheet of foam, you're probably going to switch out your blade at least once. Because it should cut like butter. It should be nice and smooth. And the alternative is using a hot knife. A lot of hobby stores will sell like hot knives that they're like exactly knives that heat up, and they're pretty cool. But it basically melts the foam where you cut it, and you get really nice clean edges. And then when you want to curve your foam, use a heat gun at high temperature. You buy heat guns at any hardware store, usually in the paint department. They're usually used for like heating up paint to peel it off and remove it. But it's really great for getting a nice curve on your armor. And the other thing that using a heat gun does is it gives it a nice glossy surface. For whatever reason, EVA foam, well, it's porous, which makes it really light. But when you heat it with a heat gun, it makes it really nice and shiny. So when you paint it later, it'll keep that nice glossy look. So a really important thing when building a EVA foam is sealing it. A lot of people forget to seal it, and the paint will rub off after. So there are many ways to do this. A really popular way is just by Plasti Dip, which is basically like a spray on rubber. It comes in an aerosol can. You can get it at a hardware store. And it's basically just spray on rubber. You just spray it onto your foam, and it'll dry, and it'll be flexible, but it'll seal it so that when you paint it later, the paint won't rub off. Another thing you can use is Mod Podge, which is basically it's almost like Elmer's glue, but it's you brush it on with a chip brush. Take questions in a moment. Sorry.
I just couldn't hear what that first thing was that you said, spray on there.
Oh, it's called Plasti Dip.
What?
Plasti Dip. P-L-A-S-T-I Dip. And it's like $8 a can, but it's good for EVA foam. And then after that, all you really need to do is just paint it. So EVA foam is really good for making costumes because it's really light and really flexible. Other alternative methods like molding and casting your armor will give you like a really heavy suit that will hurt your shoulders and you'll be screaming in pain after about 30 minutes.
It's also extremely expensive.
Yeah. So to give you an idea of how this whole suit costs maybe like $100 in materials. Actually, maybe not even that much. Because you can get a pack of like six sheets of EVA foam for like $20 at a hardware store.
Buy in bulk, make some friends. Because actually not like $20 for 100, but like $20 for 5, Michael? That doesn't make sense. Buy in bulk, make a lot of friends. That's how we make it for you.
So after you seal it, paint it up, you're good to go.
We left 11 questions, you know, you guys probably got a bunch of them, and that's kind of a really big primer. So if you guys want to just actually just queue up, probably would be the easiest way.
Do you want to just, are
you done just policy? Yeah. Can we, I think it's small enough if you guys speak up, right? So, that's just more than 6 then? Yeah, so, just raise your hand.
Okay, question time. Any questions?
Okay, so if we seen the second Captain America movie,
Yeah, Captain America movie?
okay, so you know Bucky's arm, how would I do that?
Craftfoam actually a pretty good way of spoilers.
Okay, the Winter Soldier's arm, how do I do it?
Craftfoam, I think you can, I want to say I had a picture of, I did, the question was, how would you do, like, Bucky's arm from Winter Soldier? And I did something
I
similar.
think everyone knows by now.
Yeah, I did something similar, actually. I did Rivka's arm from, Hostcraft, like a robot arm. So what you can do is you use a really thin craft foam, like what Heath said, and you make a template around your arm and wrap it there, and then layer it to get the details. And after that, you just like there, you seal it and paint it and get the thing finished.
Okay, I could like put joints in so I can move my arm a little.
Yeah, so what I did for the Rivka arm is I made sure there was space in this area for your elbow to move. I put a cap on the back here to cover that spot in there, and I layered